webinar. Welcome to our webinar. Helen has just pressed the record button, so we do that every time we have our webinars, just to give people the opportunity to view it in their own time, the recording, and obviously it helps us to improve our presentation style and skills as we go forward. This afternoon, or morning or evening, wherever you might be, we've got a webinar that's entitled about making the right decisions when you're going on your digital IT transformation, be those organizational or cultural decisions as you go through a change. I'm delighted to be joined by Helen, and she will introduce herself. Let me just give you a view on the agenda. So the agenda for the webinar has three kind of key elements. The first one is we're going to talk to you a little bit about putting some context around IT and digital transformation, what the research or the data out there tells us about what organizations are doing today, and especially as a consequence of the pandemic and COVID-19. The types of decisions that typically need to be understood. We'll probably skip some of the polls today, and then we'll hand over to Helen to talk about the cultural and people decisions, and then I'm going to do a demo of the digital transformation simulation game, which is an interactive platform that allows you to make those strategic and kind of impactful decisions on your transformation and see them played out across a number of KPIs based on the impact they have on the business. And it allows you to kind of see the things that you might want to do in your organization as you bring about change. Okay, just a little bit about me. Too many years in IT and business. So much so that I've held senior management consultancy roles. I've been in interim leadership, IT leadership roles, and I've been in public and private sector. Here's just a sample of some of the organizations I've worked for or provided services to. And a few years ago, I decided to kind of build my own brand, which is called Innovative Quality Solutions. And really the mantra there is how we can help organizations on their IT and digital transformation journey. Over to you, Helen.
Thanks, Kuldip. So my story is all about change and people, and through some fierce old times with some brands that you might recognise there that have had interesting sets of changes across the last few years. And all of that sort of builds into experience of the things you can predict as you set about on a change, and also how to figure out the things and make the decisions for the things you simply can't predict because it's never happened before. So a pandemic is a great example. In the early days of the HBOS and Lloyds banking group merger, that was another example of untrodden paths. So those are the interesting ones to try and make decisions on and think about how you take people on a bit of a culture journey.
Thank you for that introduction, Helen. I'll quickly push on to setting the scene around digital disruption. A couple of, more than data points, I think this is a survey that was done by PwC earlier in the year, and what they were asking CEOs were, where do you think the investment's going to go as a consequence and as an impact of COVID-19? Pre-COVID-19, a lot of the discussions I was having with senior leaders, being in IT or in business, were all about how they can rapidly change and adopt to the increasing or rapid adoption of technology, and how do you cope with that in your market and your sector. COVID-19 just accelerated that pace of change. It may just work in a different way, work from home in a hybrid delivery models. And this survey, as you can see, there's buckets or bar charts of 5,000 plus respondents. The one on the left-hand side, I think it tells you the story. The two I'll pick up is the two on the far left. One, I think there's organizations who have suffered and are struggling with cost pressures as a consequence of COVID-19, and they're going to be using technology to, one, enhance customer experience, but also give them some efficiency savings. And then the other ones are going to use digital and technology to actually enable growth. They see that taking their business online and delivering services more efficiently with a better customer engagement, be it via their contact center to their frontline omni-channel approach, is the best way to turn their business in, increase revenues, become more profitable, and enhance customer experience. Now, that's what this chart says. And the second kind of data point that I picked up, and this is something I chuckle over sometimes, is this this poll survey that was issued again earlier this year in LinkedIn of about 375 participants. They asked them, well, who do you think was the major driver for change? Was it your CTO, the CEO? And they all said, no, it's COVID-19. I think that hopefully puts a nail on the head in terms of the COVID-19 has really been disruptive. It's really driving that digital change, and we when I say we, companies, organizations across sectors are now, and especially as we go back to business, a lot of companies now are bringing people back from furlough and starting up again. They will really be kind of thinking about how to drive and mature their organizations using technology. And that's the essence of our webinar. So let's move on a little bit. Typically, some of the kind of engagements and clients I've worked in, you walk into an IT function, an IT department, and I would say they are usually in the bottom left-hand corner, either being very immature or trying to stabilize their environments. And I think coming out of COVID, recovering and then stabilizing is going to be really important. I think companies had to move rapidly to home working, and I think there's a lot of mess to clear up. There's probably lots of software, lots of systems that needed probably upgrading, that haven't had the focus and the attention, and because it's all been about laptops and high bandwidth network connectivity and making sure everybody is able to work rather than focus on growth, right? So what I typically have seen is maturing an IT department and aligning it to the business through this journey of stabilization, and then thinking about bringing in agility. And agility to me is about being able to pivot and change to aid growth. And then DevOps is really a cultural movement where you're getting your development organization, your IT operations world working collaboratively to understand the demand for the business. And that's typically the journey that we go on. But there's lots of decisions to be made on the way, right? This is not an easy journey. This is a multi-year journey. And if we start thinking about decisions, and you're kind of embarking on an incremental or a radical change, there's things to think about from a technical and organizational perspective. Where do we start? Do we put in a service desk solution? Do we focus on root cause analysis? What do we solve for? Do we upgrade the CRM system, or is it the ERP system that we need to refresh? Or is it about frontline websites that we need to focus on, because that's the customer facing piece? So what I'm talking about here is, what's the priorities? Where do you focus? What do we keep on track? What compromises do we make? IT typically doesn't have a bottomless pit of funding, so it's got to make some choices that align with the business agenda, and we've got to show progress, and progress is usually through some metrics and KPIs. Those decisions are not easy to make, and there needs to be some kind of strategy or business intent that you need to align to move in that strategic or kind of transformational approach. I'm going to leave the cultural and people decisions to Helen to kind of talk about, but if we just move on to um, the cultural pieces. Helen, do you want to run with that?
Yeah, thanks, Kuldip. And I think just as you've described there, finding out where an organisation is from an IT and technical point of view, and that maturity and reality, and then what has COVID done to that reality, it's just as important from the culture and people, and sets up a whole new set of decisions. So what did you ask people to do for you that was above and beyond the norm through COVID, and how did they respond to that? And how can you find levers that really work? I've worked with organisations, as Kuldip said, that have leapt forward in the way they've managed technology, and they really galvanise people behind a single goal. I think if that's one thing I've carried throughout all of the change in communications work I've ever done, you need to galvanise people behind something. It can't be we want to transform our digitised experience so that there's an interface of different la-di-la-di-la. It's we want to make it great for customers. We want this to be brilliant if customers can do X, Y, and Z with us easily. Something that people can understand and they can get behind. So they need that certainty as the direction of where you're going. Then as you go through this maturity, you kind of how are you going to get business buy-in? They might think on some lenses that IT are the baddies. There's a lot of credit in the bank actually for the technology departments that have pulled it out of the bag to get technology out to people, to new locations, to work remotely and that leap forward. But there's equally, you tend to only get in touch when something's broken. So it's not necessarily a continuing healthy and positive set of discussions that go on. So how do you get buy-in for another set of changes? How do you get people to be comfortable with failure? How do you get present failure as a success? How do you stop a blame culture where everyone sort of feels like they don't want to step outside a comfort zone to do something, but they want to do that in a controlled way? How do you equip the people across the business to take action for themselves to free up the people teams to do their best work, focusing on development and the future? How do you kind of set expectations and build that future path? And what do you do if it doesn't go right? Lovely linear path we've painted there, but it will be much bumpier than that as it goes through. So there's a whole bunch of culture and people decisions that need to be made at the start of a program and all the way through it, and all of the factors that you made those decisions on will change as it goes through. So what was true at point one at the start, 6 months in, won't be true. Things will have changed. There will be events and interactions and successes and disappointments that change things. So you need to evolve how you manage people's feelings about it, action and commitment right the way through this in a really authentic way. So that's kind of some of the decisions that we've chatted about before. I think we'll just move on a little bit and then it's back over to you.
Yeah, so thank you for that, Helen. So we talked about making decisions, be they technical, organizational, cultural. About a year or 18 months ago, we decided that we needed to kind of develop a platform where we could get a cohort of people together that could experience making decisions and understand the impact of those decisions on a business. So I've been working in IT and digital transformation for a long time, and I've been doing a lot of simulations which were delivered in classroom to a cohort of people who did a role playing. So we switched the digital simulation in room to a virtual platform and a virtual play, and we called it DTXI, Digital Transformation Experience I for single player. And really, it's about bridging that gap between business and IT. But what it does allow you to do is explore all those decisions that me and Helen have been talking about. We can't simulate some of the cultural aspects because that's quite difficult. That's contextual in an organization. But there are things, some harder harder decisions, like when to upgrade a system, when to move to agile ways of working, or when to do a software upgrade or a hardware failover. It's you can make those decisions, but you want to understand the impact of them, and organizations struggle to understand what's needed to make those decisions. So we developed this platform, and I'm going to demo the platform, and I'm also going to walk you through some screenshots as well. I'm just going to maybe we could put if you could all go on mute, that would be really great. Okay, I'll do that. I've lost the presentation slides. Oh, okay, you've switched over. Thank you, Helen. I've put you. Are you still on mute as well? I'm going to ask to put you. Can you hear me now?
I
I can
can hear
hear
you
you
now.
now.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
I've handed over control so you can go into the platform.
Okay. I was going to put some context. Okay, no problem. So if everybody can tell, if you can tell me you can see my screen.
I can, yeah.
Yeah. So the simulation platform in the game, when you run it, you are a company called Global Air. And as Global Air, what you're trying to do is you're trying to mature your IT organization and transform it. And you have a leaderboard. You have a leaderboard with the people that you're playing the game. Although you play virtually, there's a cohort, and we bring the cohort together to experience the some learning around some of the impactful things that people have seen and done. Um, but as Global Air, you're trying to improve your profit margin. That's how you measure your performance. And you're trying to improve profitability. You're trying to reduce the revenue that you're losing through incidents, and you're trying to become stable. You're stabilizing your organization, and you're trying to then become agile. And hopefully, those track the metrics that I've just been measuring, and I'll show you all this. You'll be able to see how those metrics change as you make those decisions, and you understand the impact of those decisions. In the game, there's a few modes. There's there's the admin mode where I'm kind of tracking what people are doing. There's a demo mode we can share with people and beforehand so that they're familiar with the screens. And the thing is, there's a lot of information as you play the game. And we've done that purposely because there's a lot of data out there these days. And it's important for people to understand what data is meaningful and useful and what isn't, and actually use that to make the right decisions. And then there's also the play standalone game. And I'm going to press that button, and I'm going to hope that this spins up. Yeah, there you go. In the background, what's happening now is all the algorithms with all the data and all the scenarios that we programmed into the platform are spinning up. What you got to remember when you're playing this game, you're going through 12 rounds of gameplay. 12 rounds is sort of mirroring 12 months. And in that 12 months, i.e. 4 quarters, there's a particular scenario in each quarter. And as you'll see in the game, as we get you, as you'll see the screenshots, you'll see the number of days in the month. For month 1, we play out month 1 together. You can see the days increasing in the month. You can see Global Air in your leaderboard, and it's shooting down the leaderboard because you start 250th of 250 airline organizations. And we've given them some quite interesting names. There's one called Thin Air. Uh, no Can Do Airways.
I think I've flown with them.
And you know, as you can see in the marketplace in the airline industry, and we chose the airline industry because that was what was the in-house gamification, but it resonated with people at the time because people go on holiday or they go traveling for a trip, and there's a lot of, it's a software intensive industry, and it's trying to digitize itself, and there's a lot of sort of legacy software, and there's lots of digital apps that you need to go from booking to reserving to going on your journey and so forth. So it resonated with people. But back to the screen. After playing month 1, playing out, what you can see is Global Air are minus 3.3% in operating margin. In the middle, what you can see is all our live IT services. You've got your front end, middle, and back office systems, right from payroll to ERP to your online booking systems. Blue means the service is up, red it's down, amber it's kind of being rebooted because there's probably been an incident and something needs to be upgrade needs to be applied. We can see a number of incidents. There's 45. On the right-hand side, you can see your cloud infrastructure, on-premise, off-premise. There's a customer satisfaction score, and there's a little bit of a development pipeline there. So what I'm going to do now is press the green button, which says View Reports. And what that does is takes us to the four KPIs that you track yourself as global air in that leaderboard. When you make your strategic maneuvers, how do you assess the impact of that on the business? And you do that through these four KPIs. 1, the operating margin. 2, your customer satisfaction score. 3, the revenue that you're losing through incidents. And if you can bring in new services, there's usually a growth impact, and that could positively impact your revenue predictions here. If we just look at the middle graph, just kind of gives you the business context. What we're trying to do as we stabilize and kind of introduce new services or from benefits from new releases, your revenue, which is your green line, should jump over your fixed costs of your business. And if that happens, you're going to have some profit or margin, right? And that's the premise of the metrics and the KPIs as well as they build up. So we've done month 1. Let me just show you the insights button, because the insights button tells you the context of the first quarter and what your stakeholders are saying. So the CEO of Global Air is saying, for quarter 1, we want to get into the top 200. And this will be a great boost for our staff and our morale, because operating margin is -3.3. We could try to get to about plus 3.7. CFO agrees with that, but he says, well, let's be a little bit more ambitious. Let's drive our revenue that we're losing, for instance, down from 11 million to, let's get it down to 5.5 million per month. Our service desk is unhappy in the sense that they're fixing things, but they're not quite sure where to focus. What are the business critical services, and how do we? And surely we should be focusing our resources and capability on fixing those issues. And customers are saying, "Hey, Mr. Global Air, the online booking system is not great," and that's a real issue, because if you can't get customers to book trips, you're not getting any revenue, and your customer satisfaction is dropping, and your market share will drop. You're bottom of the barrel as it is, but we need to kind of move you up the ladder. And the strategy play, this is where you make your strategic maneuvers. And what I'm going to show you is all your live services, the amount of revenue that they generate. I'm filtering them according to the revenue that they generate on a daily basis, the customer experience score that they give. And here are some strategic options. You can upgrade that service. You can add a hardware failover. You can add a microservice. Let me just show you all the strategy list. I'm going to play probably 1 or 2 rounds, get to end of quarter 1 and show you how we bring people together to do a review. But I want to show you the strategy list, because we play 12 rounds. I'm only going to do 3 in this demo, but those rounds 4, 5 and onwards, there's a whole bunch of things that you can introduce for Global Air to get it stable, get it and move it agile. And I'll show you that progression in a few slides. You can manage quality through the development lifecycle by introducing unit test coverage, bring about test-driven development, introduce peer code reviews. You can improve the speed or the flow of information and data and products and services by bringing in DevOps practices like continuous integration and development. You can bring in agile ways of working. If you're waterfall, you want to move to agile so that you are delivering products and services in an incremental way, so you reduce risk and you're more likely to deliver what your customer wants. You're introducing, bringing value by looking at your product backlog and prioritizing and introducing new services. I'll notice each of these plays in the game costs something, and I'll come back to that cost figure in a minute. The managing existing current services, you need to understand what's up, what's available, what incidents are happening, look at the incident log, then understand the root cause of problems through your problem management report, and also think about how you can improve availability of services through better configuration management, change management, upgrades to hardware and software, and they all cost something here. So if we go back to reports and to play, if we want to now play month 2, what you can see in at the top here, we have $50,000. Each round, you're given a budget of $50,000, and it's a limited budget because IT always, or the digital functions have a limited budget because it forces you to prioritize. When we get to the agility side, we give you an extra 50,000 because you can now introduce new services. So that gives you more maneuverability in terms of some of the improvements you can make. And if you can see for round 2, I really want to understand the service performance of my services to my customers. So I'm going to press the service performance button, and hopefully that will show me all my live services. It shows you the revenue that they generate, but it doesn't tell me anything more at this stage. And with my 50,000, I'm going to purchase the availability report. It's going to cost me 20,000. I'm comfortable with that because hopefully that'll give me a feeling of what's up and not. And what they're telling me here is that, again, I'm filtering on the most revenue generating services per day. Chris is trying to come back in. Sorry, I'm just limiting people as we go along as well. So you can see a lot of your services, the revenue that they generate per day, actually what they're generating, and that gives you a feel of their availability. Please note, service online booking has a very low availability. There's an issue there. You can see the delta between many of these services are not performing, but I still don't know the root cause. I've got 30,000 to spend, so I'm going to purchase a problem management report for 15,000 because I want to get under the skin of what's going on here with those services. And what problem management therefore allows you to do is to tell you if it's a software problem, is it a hardware issue, is there a dependence, are you dependent on another service? If I again filter according to revenue generated per day and what it should do, what it's telling me for the online booking system, there's a software issue. There's 3 software issues. So what I really need to do with the 15,000, I think, is I want to upgrade the online booking system. And the reason I would do that is because it's the most revenue generating, it's the most customer facing service. So it's critical, right, for the business to survive. So if I go back to my strategy button, armed with some knowledge, and there's other information that we've gleaned from there in terms of the services and their problems, but I know that I'm going to do a software upgrade for 15,000 on the online booking. I've spent my money, I know what I'm going to do, but I'm also going to do one other thing. And remember, this is the happy path I would play. I know how the game works, so I'm showing you the best way to go about this. I am going to prioritize. Here you can see a column around prioritization. So any service that's customer facing and gives high customer satisfaction, anything above that generates 100,000 US dollars and above, I am going to make high. And why wouldn't you do that? You want to be able to focus revenue and or capability and resources to fix those critical services because they're the most important to keep your business going. And any service above 50,000 to 100,000, I'm going to make medium. And this is a free strategic maneuver. And anything below that is low. There's 3 pages of services, 89 services. I'm going to now press save and play out month 2. And I'm hoping the upgrade to the online booking system, the prioritization, which you can see here, has had an impact on my business, i.e. Global Air. And let's see what happens. And as the software chugs away, the only reason it takes a while, there's a whole number of permutations and scenarios that individuals in the game can play. I've only played the best path, but in the game you can play all sorts of maneuvers. You can go and try to become agile at the beginning, but that will have a limited benefit. Remember, the game is all about making the decisions that you think that will positively impact global air in the market and against your colleagues. So what you can see here, we were 250th in the market, in the airline market. What we are doing, if you see as the days play out in the month, we're shooting up the leaderboard. We were 250th. We're now 220 after 25 days. What you can also see is the volume of incidents was dropped. There was 45, is down to 42. Our customer satisfaction's gone up. We haven't quite reached 200. Let's view our KPIs. And we're only in round 2. We'll play another round so you can get familiar with it. So what's our KPIs? Well, we remember the operating margin was minus 3.3. We've turned it to positive, to plus 2.3. We've had a marginal increase in customer satisfaction. Remember, we were losing 11 million pounds of revenue from incidents per month. We've reduced it down to 6.75, but we're not getting any benefits from new releases because we're just trying to keep things stable. We're trying to bring stability into the organization. We've gone on to 211th in the market leaderboard. There's still some work to be done. According to the scenario, remember what the stakeholders are saying? Stabilize, get to 3.7% in operating margin, get to 5.5 million revenue loss for incidents per month, and improve the customer satisfaction. I'm going to zip back into service performance because I know there's a whole shed load of stuff still to do. And why do I know that? Well, when I purchased the problem management report and I looked at availability, I can, if I just filter again on, if you see the online booking from that software upgrade has increased its availability to 100%. It's great. But look at the ticketing platform. It's got hardware issue. The payments platform has got a software issue, and the story goes on. So there's work to be done in terms. So what I really going to do, I think, and again, I'm going to focus on the services that are most customer facing and revenue generating. Again, that makes logical sense. That's all about being customer centric, right? So there's a delta between actual revenue generated per day and what is, and availability is low. So for the ticketing platform, I'm going to do a hardware upgrade. I put IT disaster recovery in. For the payments service, I'm going to put a software upgrade, and I've got 50,000 again for this round 3. So I go to my strategy play. Payments is a software. So if I go to my strategy page and make some maneuvers, again, I'm going to filter according to revenue generation. Payments was a software upgrade. That's what I'm going to do, tick the box. Ticketing platform was a hardware issue, so I'll put a failover. And you look at I've only got 10,000 left. That's not going to buy me anything else because I can't, in terms of a microservice or V2 software upgrade or a failover, I can't afford it. I might be able to purchase a report, but I don't think it's going to give me anything more at this stage. I'm going to save and play month 3 out. There's my 2 upgrades, and I'll play month 3. And let me see again. Let the algorithms and all the permutations play out. And again, I'm playing the happy path. The happy path is the greatest, most maturest path. But you, as an attendee on the simulation, you could play any path you want to, and you'll be able to assess the impact of that path on those KPIs for global air in the business context. And that's where you're learning experientially about making the right or the wrong decisions. And that's where the power of the experiential learning comes in. Now, as the days go by in the month, what we can see, remember the target was being 200th in the leaderboard and above. I think we're gonna exceed that. I hope so. Yeah, we've met that target. Number of incidents are stable around 40, so that's not a bad thing. Let's go and have a look at our KPIs and for this quarter. Let's view the reports. Oh, right. Well, there we go. Operating margin, the target was 3.7. We got to 4.6. Customer satisfaction has improved a little bit, but I think we could do more. But I'm going to keep that for the later rounds. I think we get more customer satisfaction when we bring out new services and we continue to stabilize what we've got. We were trying to reduce the revenue we lose each month from incidents down to 5.5 million per month. We've gone down to 5, and we're 193 in the leaderboard. So, and the graph in the middle shows those margin, customer experience, revenue loss for incidents and benefits, which is stable, or zero, I should say, trending out as we go along, as we play the game. For the next quarter, so we've done 3 rounds of gameplay. We've got round 4 to go, and we've got 50,000 for round 4. But what I would do at this stage, because people or the attendees in the course would have got familiar with the play, got familiar with the platform, familiar with the construct of the simulation, and they know where they're going, I would bring, say there was 5, I'd bring them all together and have a little bit of discussion on, and I'd actually pick on one because I know if somebody's done well or not, and say, look, you did, hey, Tom, Jim, David, you did this, you had really good KPIs. Can you tell the rest of us what you played and why you made those decisions? And that's where the learning comes from. They made certain decisions that positively impacted global air in the market sector and those KPIs, and that there's usually at the end of quarter 1, there's 4 or 5 key things that we bring out. Global air had a particular business intent and purpose. It was clear from the insight section. They knew what they were trying to achieve. Second thing is that they use data. You have to use data and information to determine where you are and use the reports to understand, and dashboards to understand where things are moving. You need to be able to get to the root cause of issues from problem management to actually define what strategic plays you're going to make. And fourthly, it's so important to prioritize. You have limited budget, you have limited resources. What are your priorities? What are you going to focus on? From the world of work or the world of business, we need to be customer centric and always focusing on services that impact our customers, or from an IT perspective, our end users in our business, to give us maximum return. So those are the learning points at that stage. What we would then do is move into a discussion. So we've learned these things through the simulation. The decisions we made, are there certain things and certain decisions that we can go away now and make in our own organization? And that's where you can then start thinking about your change, your improvement and change opportunities according to what you've learned in the gamification. And that becomes very, very powerful, because what you've done through a gameplay, a fun, competitive, risk-free environment, you've learned something about how you're maturing your IT organization in the digital context, and you can take that learning away and go and play into your own organization. I'm just going to quickly show you, I'm going to quickly flick over to month 4, because as I said, each quarter or 3 months, the scenario, you're still global air, but you're now going to month 4, the scenario has changed and the context is different. And what your CEO is now saying is, at the end of quarter 2, what we'd like global air to be is in the top 180. And we would like that operating margin to not be 3.7, it's to be above 6%. We still want to continue to reduce the revenue that we're losing. For instance, it was about 5.5 million. Let's get it down to 3.5 million. The service desk is crying out for more information so that it can prioritize and fix repeating incidents. And they think it's related to interconnected and dependencies across systems. And customers are asking for tickets to be resolved quicker, faster, better. So you can tell from that scenario, there's a few learnings we're going to bring out. I'm not going to play the next few rounds, but some of the things we'll start exploring in Q2 are things about using knowledge management to do channel shift, so resolving tickets from second line to first line, and actually doing self-service for customers and doing channel shift. That's such a massive learning point through the gamification. We'll bring in concepts around improving and understanding your assets and your configuration of your environment, so that you can understand the impact of instance problems and changes, so that you can resolve those issues quicker, faster, better, because you can get to the root cause. I'm going to stop it there and flick back to the slides, Helen, if you can.
Yep.
And I
Can you give me a
make you
make me
yeah,
powerful again?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I press the um, power
Right.
button.
You press the power button. I think we're off.
Yeah, and if I can
Mm.
just, we did quarter one.
Yeah.
We explained that scenario. Oh, right. So as we go through quarter by quarter, this is the final outcome that you get to as you play the gamification. Again, this is based on going on the happy path or the correct path. But remember, it's not, as Helen said earlier, it's not a linear journey. You go left, right, up, down. And the whole point of the gamification is to learn from mistakes. And you do that, but what you can do in the gamification is learn from the impact of those mistakes and from your cohort and the facilitation. But if you get it right, your KPIs will trend, as you can see here. The margin will slowly start to increase. Your customer experience scores goes up. The revenue that you've lost, for instance, will stabilize. You can never, ever reduce incidents to zero. Software is always buggy. There's always some new software. It's always going to have bugs. You're going to have to manage that incident loss from revenue to what you're getting by introducing new services. And actually, that's a good point, because when we get to round or Q3, we're thinking of introducing agile plays. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that to give you a little bit more context about the functionality in the gaming that we bring from being agile, then bringing in DevOps. If I just move on, I described scenario 2 in quarter 2, sorry. In quarter 3, here's the scenario. Once we've fully stabilized the business, what the business now says, we want to be in the top 125 in the airline industry. We want to get operating margin above 11%. And actually, we want to get additional £2 million of revenue per month. And the CFO is saying, we can only do that if we introduce 2 new services per month that generate 70,000 US dollars per day. And as you can see in the top right hand button, there's $50,000 each for service improvements and stability, and 50 we give you an additional 50,000 introduce new services. So the scenario is turned to, we've stabilized, now we want to introduce new products and services. What's the best way of doing that? We typically, most organizations have been doing it in a waterfall way, but we want to improve the speed of that. We want to improve the quality of the delivery of new services, so our customers feel that we are addressing their needs. So you build minimal viable products with high, and introduce quality initiatives and speed and flow, and continue to drive value for your customers. And that's the agility piece coming into play from quarter 3, months 6 to 9, and then we move from months 9 to 12 when we start thinking about, and I'll quickly flick over to Q4, is you're still trying to introduce new services, but what we're trying to do is manage the backlog. You're looking at the business demand. You're still trying to introduce new services, but you're trying to put in quality control, test-driven development, introduce CI/CD pipelines, and you're trying to build that culture of DevOps where the development team and the IT ops team are working together. And as the game plays out, there's usually a number of people who have different lenses in the game. They can see the infrastructure people and the ops people start understanding the development life cycle, and actually the people who've been listening on the stability side, the development people, actually start understanding the stability side of the equation. And that's where you start understanding, the cohorts start understanding each other's perspectives and how they need to work together in that DevOps culture to ensure stable, reliable, agile delivery of IC services to the business that are focused on the customer needs. So let me just show you the progression of that capability as we've matured it. You can see here, this is a plot of operating margin according to the month gameplay up to month 12. What you can see is that we introduced capability around incident continuity management, configuration, knowledge management, problem management, months 1 to 6. We've got an organization stable, but we realize if we're really going to grow the business, we need to introduce new services, we need to grow the business, and the way to do that in a more effective way is to move to agile ways of working, increase speed of interaction with your client, with customer feedback loops, but we need to make sure we maintain quality and always be customer centric in terms of the value. And the metrics trend something like that. So the experiential learning is not just on stability, but the agility side, as I've mentioned before. And what the simulation highlights, what does it do? What does it outcomes that it achieves? It totally focuses on customer centricity for everybody to understand the bigger picture. It's a focus on end users, customer. We need how you bring in organizational agility, the decisions you need to make to bring those in, speed to market, why that's important, why quality, whatever you develop still needs a degree of quality that gives satisfaction, how stabilizing and building resilience in your business is important to reduce risk. And it's important to increase the efficiency of your organization. So you're kind of automating things, you're bringing in a degree of efficiency in your organization to give that resilience and stability. Now, I'm going to flick over that, and I'm going to just going to flick back to somewhere here. There's enough about me talking about how great this is. We're delighted to have one of our customers who've actually been through the simulation to come along. I want to introduce Sanando Chowdhury, who's the CIO and head of IT at ADNEC. And I'm just trying to see if I can get him. Let me just go back. See if I can get Sanando to get him off mute. Helen, you're going to have to do that.
I was just thinking exactly the same.
Yeah. So Sanando.
There we go.
There we go. Sanando, the floor is yours. Like I said, I can talk at length about this, but we've taken your organization through a simulation training. And I'm wondering if you tell the audience your experience with you and your team, if you may.
Yeah, no, good afternoon, everybody. Yeah, I think we had this. I came across this, I think, a couple of months back or so, and then it really intrigued me, to be honest. The solution when I saw it, and I didn't see it in so much detail as you've all seen it today. So and then we kind of obviously interacted with Kuldip to have this session. I think the real benefit that we found out have going through the session, and we did as a team, I think it gives a different perspective to see digital transformation, unlike the typical way we do, listening to a webinar or attending a session. So effectively you go through the journey, which I think is really something different that came out. The key highlights, I would say, in over the session was where it's focused on all the time on customer needs, uh, and always showing. So every session that we work on, or we run through the game, it's always focused on a value. So there's certain expectations that the organization has, be it monetary value, be it customer centricity, etc. So that kind of drives. So it gives digital transformation with a business objective always in mind, which is great. And you kind of, so because as typical as technology functions, we always focus on the technical side of things, and we don't see the holistic picture. And I think this tool brings that very well. And as Kuldip was highlighting, I think as you kind of touch upon the plays, you can intentionally do something in a different way and see the outcome. So it gives that flexibility. So we are in a safe environment, we can play around. And I remember some of us were going in a different direction, and some of were going in this, the usual expected way. So that's the beauty. So you can see, okay, if I do this and this and this, and how does that overall outcome at the end of the session comes up. So I would kind of leave it there with just one more thing. I think the beauty is because it's a game, and quite well constructed. So it helps in team building, and but gives that competitive edge. So everybody's kind of trying to get there, and and I think it's important, which I think Kuldeep briefly mentioned, but it is very important that we have those conversations between the sessions, because I think that's really what comes out of whatever you've done, is the plays you play, and then you kind of say that, okay, I thought if I do 1, 2, and 3, this should have been the outcome. So I'll leave it there. Happy to answer if anybody has any questions.
Yeah, thank you, Sanandez. Helen, do you want to jump in? Because um, I've talked quite a bit about the making decisions, maybe on the people side, what this brings
Yeah, for
out, and
sure.
Sananda alluded to it as well.
Yeah, I think what's really interesting for me is, so we go right back to the beginning of, we were talking about all of these decisions and how people feel and where they're going to be and how that will change as it goes through. And what's super fascinating for me in the game is you kind of get to feel those people things as you go along. You get into a point where you're going to make some quite brave decisions that may or may not pay off. And that would be real life. And you get to talk about, gosh, we're going to have to get into a mindset where we're okay with that. And that's quite different to how we are today. Because as you're doing it, where in real life, this would happen over a period of time. It's happening so intensely. You get to feel, gosh, we've gone from like A to Z here real quick. That will feel different. We'll have to think differently. We've got to trust each other. We're going to have braver conversations than we've had before. This is, you're moving people emotionally and practically through something in a way that they can see the level of people change that will need to accompany the technical way of thinking and the way that you organize yourself and those decisions that you make. And really all focusing on the customer. This is, a really glorious part of it is there is sometimes or historically tension between the business and IT of who is right, who is doing the right thing, are they doing the best for us, are they demanding crazy things, and there's a tension. And when you both sort of turn and start to face the customer shoulder to shoulder, looking at, this is the outcome we want to get to, this is something, then there's suddenly a real collaboration between people and developing a trust and achieving things together, as opposed to a throw things over the fence approach that could be there in more tense periods. So I absolutely love seeing that conversation mature and people realizing we can go somewhere really incredible here that will be great as an experience, as scary as it might be. And gosh, we need to think about how we do that as we take people through series of changes in real life. So I thought that was my observations of the game.
Yeah, I think let me pick up an example because I remember this from the session we had with Sanando's team. When we got into the agile world, there were a few new feature releases that failed, um, and the guys were going, "Why has it failed?" I said, "That's reality. Things don't work, and what you have to do sometimes is um, accept failure, learn lessons, and move on." And I know everybody talks about failing fast, but you know, things don't work out. And you see the impact of failure because that new service introduced loads of bugs. And you can see the impact that on the revenue that you've lost, for instance, goes up. Yeah. And I think that was I remember that being a bit of a wow moment for the team. I was thinking, Helen, we might have still time to do the final poll survey if you wanted to. Do you think that's a good idea, or should we open it to Q&A?
I think let's do some questions to see if anybody wants to get
Okay.
any more detail.
Mhm.
I know we've got a couple of people that have having to dive off for their 5 o'clock, so that might be
Yeah.
the right
Okay.
thing to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Questions, final thoughts, um, and feel free, obviously, as ever, to reach out if you have any questions.
So everybody should be able to unmute themselves now or pop them in the question box, the chat box even, if you've got any questions.
Yeah, there's somebody from Simplicity Consulting said it was a great session, like the gamification. James has had to drop off for his next meeting. Any questions? Or should we try a poll? I don't know. What do you think?
Go on then, let's do that.
Let's have a quick one. How about this one? So we'll do one final thing before we bring it to a close. Let's do a little quick word cloud. There's a barcode there for you to go to slido.com, and there's an ID code. What we'd love to hear from you is, imagine you could see into the future of your digital transformation decisions. What would you want to know? What would you want to know? If you're looking into the future, what would you want to know? It just has to be a word. And if you're on your laptop or your mobile device or what went wrong? Yeah, absolutely. You want to know your mistakes. Uh, uh, how can we change fast? That's interesting. Ah. Helen, any thoughts coming to your mind?
I think it's what do we be most brave about? How do we be really brave with decisions? Because I think you're going to suffer setbacks. You mentioned that in the wrap up there. If you saw things go wrong and the uncomfortable feeling of things going wrong impacts your bravery. I think it does in anything that you try. You just think, oh, kind of go through that feeling again of it didn't quite work. So how can you stay brave would be a great decision to know the answer of, I think.
Yeah. And wouldn't it be nice to know the impact of your decisions based on that bravery, positively or negatively, so that you can steer your ship on some level of certainty. Because when we go in, you know, the data out there proves that 70 to 80% of transformations fail for whatever reason. And wouldn't it be great to play out some of these scenarios before you actually did make those strategic maneuvers? Be you at the leadership level or below, wherever you might be, playing in a safe environment, simulating it out in a risk-free environment in a cost-effective way, and take the right decisions for your organization. And if you're successful with making the right decision, so will your organization, so you. That's the way I think about it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Fabulous.
I think it's past 5 o'clock. I'd like to thank yourself, Helen, and Fernando, for staying on and providing that client feedback. It's really important that whenever we do these kind of things, that we bring value to our clients. Thank you, everybody, for attending our webinar, and look out for the recording. Thanks again. Bye-bye.